Hi there, I'm Eric Newland. We've got a terrific show today. We're going to share with you today probably which was one of the most exciting auctions of sports memorabilia that has happened in this decade, or possibly ever for that matter. We all read about and we all know about the fabulous art auctions at Sotheby's, the impressionistic art that has went through the roof and goes for millions and not hundreds, but millions of dollars. Just recently, in August of 1989, I believe on the 19th and the 20th of August, there was a two-day sports auction that was held at the Hunter College Sportsplex. What this auction entailed was over 30 years, 40 years of Topps memorabilia that the Topps company out of Brooklyn, New York, looked into their archives. They brought out all of this one-of-a-kind material, and in conjunction with Guernsey's auction house, which is a Manhattan-based auction house, put together one of the largest and single most profitable sports auctions that has happened, and probably, for that matter, has changed sports memorabilia and collecting as we know it today in terms of value and who, in fact, is getting involved in sports memorabilia. We have as our guest today one of the principal spokesperson for Topps baseball cards, Norman Liss. And Norman Liss was also responsible for bringing together this sports auction, which was many months in the making. Norman, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Norman, let's share with the viewer the background of how this sports auction got off the ground.
Well, as you know, Topps has been producing not only baseball bubblegum cards, but also football and hockey and some basketball in the past, as well as non-sports cards for many, many years. And the material that was used in the production and the development of these products have been sitting at Topps headquarters in Brooklyn, and they are really the archives of the company. Many of them are original artwork, original drawings, and we had been asked for years by collectors, what is in there? Does it exist? Since there is such a great interest in collecting. And so Topps decided that rather than let it sit there where nobody could see it, that these would be shared with the public. And so we started to talk to various people, and Guernsey's, which has an excellent reputation for auctions of very unusual types of items, were tremendously enthusiastic about it. And they said that they would like to put on this auction. So the arrangements were made, and the planning was done, and many months later, on August 19th and 20th, the auction took place.
This is from the auction house. This is the Topps the auction, and this was the book that one was able to get if they attended the auction, or in fact sent in $20 or $25, I believe. And this book is, if you were sitting at the auction, the different lots that were auctioned off. For example, this is the series of 6 portraits of the 1953 baseball cards. I believe there's a Bob Feller baseball card here, there's a Willie Mays baseball card here, there's a Mickey Mantle baseball card, there is that of Jackie Robinson, I might be leaving out, there's Roy Campanella, I believe, also, and Willie Mays. These cards were 1953 baseball cards, and the only time that Topps used actual original art to create their baseball cards. And probably also was the highlight of the auction, which I want to save that. I want to save the highlight of the auction somewhat. But there was other material here that was auctioned off. There was, for example, the 1952 contract that Topps had exclusively with Mickey Mantle. And this is the original contract, and this is a copy of the original contract, of course, of what was in fact auctioned off. Do you remember what that sold for? That
I don't remember the exact amount, but it was, I believe, in excess of $15,000.
Let me read. This is Mickey Mantle's contract. This contract is dated 7/14/1952. I hereby authorize the printing and use of my picture and biographical sketch to be sold as a premium cards or in combination with the products of Topps Chewing Gum. It is understood that I may give the same or similar rights to others as I choose. Also, I might cancel this release by notification in writing. And it goes on, it is understood that this release is not a testimonial or endorsement of any product sold in combination with my picture, and it's signed Mickey Mantle, it's printed Mickey Mantle, the address Commerce, Oklahoma. And there's only one of those contracts, and that was auctioned off. That was one of the pieces that was auctioned off.
Yes, everything that was at this auction was one of a kind. So that was the important thing. These were not copies, these were originals, and they were included correspondence out of the files of Topps.
Here's another one which I think is somewhat interesting. This is Henry Aaron's contract. This is dated June 18th, 1954. And this is from Topps. This is from Cy Berger. Now, Cy Berger is who, please?
Vice President in charge of sports and licensing for Topps.
Now, was it Cy who was the individual arranging the contracts with the players at that given time?
His primary function is to be in charge of the sports department and the relationships with the ball players, and he still has that function today.
Here's the letter that Cy Berger wrote to Henry Aaron. Now, this is June 18th, 1954, of course. Understand, no one knew at that time that he would break Babe Ruth's record, that he would go on to become one of the greatest Hall of Famers and baseball players to have played the game. Dear Hank, we're happy to send along to you the enclosed check number 74 in the amount of $50 in full payment for the contract you have with us. You will recall that in August of 1953, you signed our contract check and received a payment of $10. Listen to these dollars amounts. This contract called for an additional payment of $50 when your picture was included in the Topps Baseball Picture Card Series. And he goes on, should you have any suggestions of how we can improve your card for 1955, please don't hesitate to pass them on to us. Incidentally, please note that we also have available an exclusive contract under which you'll receive $125. Should you be interested in this type of arrangement, just let me know, and I'll be glad to send an exclusive contract on to you for your signature. It's amazing, Norman, how, we talk about these dollars, $125, $10, and today players are getting paid $1 million, $2 million, and soon to be $3 million.
And you must realize that many of the ball players in the old days were not getting, the superstars of the past, were not getting anywhere near the kind of
Absolutely
money
not.
that the players are getting today.
I mean, $12,000 and $15,000 was a big salary.
And they really missed the bonanzas of today. And perhaps that helps understand why so many of them are appearing to sign autographs at the card collectors shows, where they can be paid generally by the promoter of the show. They're paid a large sum of money and then will sign autographs for a given number of hours.
One of the things that was interesting, Norman, was when I read into the background of this particular sports auction, that Topps was also donating from the proceeds of this auction, which at the time, well, let me ask you, did you have any concept of the amount of money that would be raised in the sports auction before I ask you the next question? Did you have any idea before the auction took place?
We, everybody, Guernseys, Topps people, I personally, were really astounded at the total dollars. It was $1.6 million totally. We really did not anticipate that this would happen. And it really said a great deal about what has happened in the sport of collecting.
Well, what was really, I think, interesting was that before this auction took place, you had made arrangements with donating certain proceeds to the Special Olympics, to
Children's Museum of Manhattan.
Children's Museum of Manhattan,
and the baseball
which has
alumni
just moved,
team.
and the baseball alumni team. And Topps generously donated a substantial amount of money to each of those concerns.
Yes, each of those organizations has received $100,000 from Topps, and we felt that some of the proceeds from the auction should be used for a purpose, a worthwhile purpose that these organizations represent.
Well, I mean, I think not only is it generous, but, you know, and it's very timely that the Children's Museum, for example, has just moved their location.
Yes.
Let's talk about what the environment was like the day of the auction. I was not there. I was not able to be there. But if you could share with the viewer, you know, what was it like to be there that day? What kind of attendance was there? How many people were bidding? What was that about?
I think the place to start talking about what took place would be the 2 days of preview.
Okay.
What took place was that there were display racks set up in this entire gymnasium in rows, and there were 15 or 20 rows with all sorts of cards on them, and people were invited to come in and to see these. It was the first time anywhere that such a collection had been on display. That phenomenon itself, you entered the room through a balcony which overlooked the entire place, and to look down on this row after row after row was, to me and to everybody else, overwhelming. As a matter of fact, all of the television stations and networks which covered it had a photo of that because it was just so amazing. And then as you walked down each row and saw this original artwork, these original material...
I'm going to hold this up as you keep talking, Norman, please.
Of all of the various types of artwork that was available that not only had not been seen in this form by the public, but had not really been seen by Topps. So that was quite a two-day spectacle that was unbelievable. And the reason that this was possible is that the Guernseys had a team of people for months going through the archives at Topps. And what they were doing during this time was actually sorting through the material and putting in a form so that it could be on display. So the preview days themselves were like going to a museum that had never been opened before.
Do you personally reminisce for yourself? I mean, because you've been involved with Topps for a long time. I mean, there were certain projects that you were directly involved and responsible for over many years with Topps. Did you have any tings and pings and pangs in yourself in terms of things that you were helped bring forward to the public?
My whole life flashed before me. I've been associated with Topps for 30 years, right. And so a lot of the products there from 1959 on were things that I had worked on and been involved with and had talked about, and it was quite phenomenal to see it.
Share with the viewer what, again, let's go to the day of the auction. Now, we've set up what it was like. We had the 2-day preview. This is in the middle of the summer. It's hot. You were obviously, I would hope to think, in an air-conditioned facility.
That's one of the reasons that we did select this location, because of the air conditioning and the size and the security, which was a very important question. There was a lot of security people around. How
were the original asking prices, so to speak, or what in fact Topps thought, for example, would a particular item would sell for? For example, I know I keep harping back to the 1953 portraits of the baseball players, but that probably was the singular highlight of the whole auction.
Those estimates of the prices were determined by Guernseys, who put together the catalog, and they based their estimates on conversations that they had with people, with collectors, and on discussions with Topps. They were astounded by the result because it turned out that they were far below. The Guernseys people were just as amazed as we were at what took place.
What took place that day was made headlines across the country. I mean, they made the front page of almost every newspaper. I believe the mantle, I think, was auctioned off on a Saturday, I believe. I think Sunday on the front page of the New York Times. There was, and then subsequently in Sports Illustrated, I think a couple of weeks ago, There's a gentleman here by the name of Jones. What's his first name? Do we know it, Norman?
I don't know his
Okay.
name, but he is one of the 3 people who were doing the successful bidding.
Which began to change, I think, in baseball card auctioneering as we might know it today, or sports memorabilia auctioning as we know it today. He represented the Marriott hotel chain, if I'm correct.
You're correct.
Hotel and food chain.
Yes, just let me first comment on the fact that you said that it was a national phenomenon. It was international. I met someone a week afterwards who happened to have been in Italy and turned on the television set in the hotel room and saw me on television, to their amazement. Some of the media from overseas were there, and some of the stories that appeared were all over the world. It was an amazing story. What happened that actual day now was that everybody was anticipating that moment when those 7 portraits would be put up for auction. And the room was filled. There were hundreds of people in there. And the bidding started, and the auctioneer did not quite know where to start. So she started it at $20,000.
Now, for which drawing was that?
This is the Mickey Mantle that I'm talking about.
Okay, let's.
It was not. It was the last of the 7 to be auctioned off.
This is the card. This is the card that Norman is talking about. Not the card now, but the original artwork that made up this card.
And I might point out that the original artwork is not much larger than the card itself.
3.5 by 5.5, is it, or something, if I'm correct?
They're slightly larger, and I think they're larger than 3.5 by 5.5, but they are very, very small. They are not huge paintings. And so she started the bidding at $20,000 and increased it by $10,000, but that wasn't enough because it jumped to $50,000 almost immediately. And there were several earlier bidders, but they dropped out, and it came down to 2 people. There was a man at the back of the room in the center, and there was a group of people off to the right of the auctioneer in the corner. They were dressed in business suits. One of them had taken off his jacket, and his red suspenders and his tie were outstanding. And the bidding started to go very, very rapidly in huge jumps, and 50,000, 70,000, 80,000.
Did you know who this man was? Did you have any concept of who he was at the time?
I knew at the time that this group was there and that they wanted as many as they could get and that they had a budget. There were rumors going around the room, but who said that there were people there. As this bidding went back and forth, the media gathered in that corner, ready to pounce when the moment came. And the man in the middle, who represented a coin dealer in Massachusetts,
Marlborough, Massachusetts,
dropped out, and it went for $110,000. Now, that includes a 10% premium. That is what the auctioneer makes on it.
Right.
And the people who were bidding, and they also were successful on the Willie Mays. So they purchased at auction the mantle and the Mays, and they were representatives of the Marriott Corporation, and they had come in there with a budget to get as many as they could, but those 2 specifically, so that they could put them on display in their sports bars in the hotels, which has taken place already. And
they're rotating around the country, if I'm correct.
They're bringing them into each of the hotels for 2 or 3 days. At the end of this time, they plan to auction or sell them and give the proceeds to charity.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's a terrific story. With the corporations, or like a Marriott, for example, getting involved, I think to some degree that begins to change the nature of baseball card collecting and sports memorabilia collecting as just a casual hobby. I mean, it is still a casual hobby. I don't mean to say to the children out there and to others who are just collectors and have a passion for the players or for the cards themselves, for whatever reason that you have a passion for those cards. But for big companies like a Marriott, for example, for the one-of-a-kind memorabilia, in fact, that Topps did auction off that day, it has changed somewhat, I think, the reality of sports collectibles.
There are many people in the hobby media who have said that the hobby of collecting will never be the same. That, I believe, will be remembered in years to come as a major turning point in the baseball card collecting hobby.
I have some cards that I brought along, Norman, which I'm going to hold up and share with the viewer. Just a couple of cards. This card is the 1968 Topps rookie card of Nolan Ryan, who's currently with the Texas Rangers of the American League, who has broken all strikeout records, who at 41 or 42 years of age now, still struck out over 300 batters this year. I'm a collector. I purchased this card for $30. I bought this in a shop up in Nyack, New York, many years ago. This card, according to Guide today, in the condition that I have this card, and I'll hold it up again, one of the important aspects of collecting and collecting baseball cards or anything is, of course, mint condition. And this card is as if it had just fallen out of the pack today, for example. And all the corners are perfect, and it's a centered card. And the player that's along with him here is also Jerry Koosman, who is coming up. Not as famous, but certainly, one of the mainstays of the New York Mets when they won their first pennant and World Series.
I also noticed that you have it in a plastic holder, which will preserve it, and I think that's very important for young collectors today, is if they have a card which they think will have potential value for the future, they should not do what their fathers did and stick them in their back pocket or put a rubber band around them.
Put them along your bicycle spokes of your bicycle. I mean, we've done that too. There goes Mickey.
But rather than that, preserve them in the best way possible, because the condition of the card has a great deal to do with the future value.
Another card that's preserved in the same way, and a card that I bought many years ago, is a 1955 Topps baseball card, a Sanford Koufax. This is a Topps number 123 card. It said, "The Dodgers took a big step in bolstering their mound core when they signed Sandy for a large bonus last season. The former University of Cincinnati hurler compiled a brilliant strikeout record at college. In 30 innings at Cincinnati, he struck out 58 men, posted 34 strikeouts in 2 consecutive games, and in high school, Sandy was a basketball and a baseball star." Now, on the back of the card, on this particular card, there also is, it says, there's a question and answer, a true and false. It says, baseball was first played in Cooperstown, true or false. Now, this was also something that Topps did on the back of cards early on, was to put little anecdotes besides just the players' statistics.
Yes, that is true, that Topps started to do not only statistics, but feature material about the players.
Now, this card, again, which was purchased for a minimal amount of money, is today valued at between $500 and $750 in the condition that it is today. What do we tell young sports collectors and enthusiasts today in terms of collecting? Should they be in any way depressed or upset, or should that in any way discourage them from collecting cards, Norman, because of what we're reading about card collecting today and about the auctions that have been taking place?
Not at all. I think that history tells us a lot. History tells us that the Topps cards of the past are valuable today. The fact is that there is a good chance that the Topps cards of today will be valuable in the future. Now, there are a lot of cards out there, so rarity is not something that really you can anticipate.
Right.
But perhaps a player who is not cherished as much today, that people are not keeping, could become valuable in the future. Some of the cards of people who are just starting out, who maybe didn't demonstrate the potential then, who have become superstars, may become the heroes of the future. So don't look at the youngsters of today, the young baseball players of today, and say, well, he's a nobody card. save them because he may become valuable in the future.
I think it's important. One of the things that all of this is important that you're sharing with us, Norman. And I think I have a nephew, for example, and I got him started on baseball cards 3 or 4 years ago. And Mark is now 10 years old. So he first started acquiring his first cards when he was 6 and 7. And unlike myself, when I was a child, and I had everything in shoe boxes, and I didn't know from putting baseball cards in jackets or in plastic sleeves or etc., that he's got everything cared for, in a very meticulous, manner. And cards that he bought just 3 and 4 years ago, for example, I buy him a new set of Topps baseball cards each year for Hanukkah. And a set that I bought, his first set that I bought him 3 or 4 years ago, has already doubled in its value. But I think what's important for the collector to know out there is that collecting is a passion. It's something that you want to do for yourself. It's something that should be fun. If economics and business enters into it, terrific. But don't collect just for the monetary value of the card, that, that this card's going to help me towards my college education. Not that that's a bad thought at all. But collect it because there's something desirous there for you, that when you open that pack of cards and you flip through, how many cards in a pack now, Norman?
792.
And how many in a pack of cards, though, today? Do we know?
I can't tell you
15,
at the
16,
moment.
17.
Something like that, what the 1990s will have, yes.
Between 15 and 17 cards with, of course, a stick of chewing gum, bubble gum in it, that you still get that same sense of enthusiasm and that same sense of excitement that you're looking for your special player. Maybe it's a Chuck Carey of the New York Yankees. Maybe it's a Jerome Walton of the Chicago Cubs. Maybe it's a Jose Canseco, or maybe it's a Robin Yount. Whoever that player is, and it doesn't even it's not important how important that player is in the proceeds of things, but it's how important that player is to you, and for whatever quirky reason that individual might be an important individual for you. And that's what's important in collecting today, that you yourself enjoy it. Otherwise, it's more of a business. And what part of what this show is about, and part of, I feel, what my responsibility as a host today, for today's show, discussing baseball cards and the sports auction that you've all read about and you've heard about and shared with Norman, in fact, is that this is a hobby and this is fun. And you can make money at it also. And for myself, Eric Newland, and for my charming and my knowledgeable guest, Norman Liss, thank you for being here today, Norman, and for representing Topps baseball cards. And for you out there, keep collecting, enjoy the hobby, and until next week, I'll see you.